Hello, and welcome to the TFT Theology in 5 to 10 Minutes podcast. I am your host, Ramon, and here we will answer your theological questions with the help of experts from different backgrounds, from historical to the here and now, from problems to practices in the church today, and everything in between. We will deal with facts before opinions. Have a burning theological question? Get in touch and let's unwrap the Bible together. Hello, folks, wherever you're joining us from again, this is Ramon, and again, we're joined by a special guest and a friend on this show, Steve Osmond from the Solas. No, it's not. I was about to say the Solas Project. No. All right, let's go again.
You just say from Solas.
From
Yeah.
Solas, yeah. Ah. Hello, folks, wherever you're joining us from again this week. Welcome back, and we have with us again a friend of this show, and it's Steve Osmond from Solos. So welcome, Steve. What we're going to look at today, folks, in our What About series is what about other religions? So my question that I would like you to answer for me, Steve, using scriptures in 5 to 10 minutes is what about other religions? Is Christianity too exclusive?
Yeah, it's a tough question, I think, because it's it does touch on the real lived experience of people. It's not like one of these up in the air kind of questions. It's much like, the question of suffering. It's a real thing, and so we undoubtedly people will know people of other faiths, different worldviews, no faith at all, and so um, the answer to this kind of question really has implications. And so the scripture I think that comes to mind most clearly for me on this question of, what about other religions? And hey, isn't Christianity just a bit too narrow, just a bit too exclusive? Is one that I refer to so many times when thinking about relativism or pluralism, which is the idea that multiple religions or worldviews are actually true and valid at the same time. If whoever's listening can previous video we did on truth and relativism. Um, and there, I also touched on the scripture of John 14:6, where Jesus very clearly, from, in his own words, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father but through me. Right. And it's interesting. I once, this idea of pluralism and relativism is something that is so pervasive, I think, in the broader culture, especially in the West, but also with Eastern religions much of the time. It's definitely made its way also into Christian thinking in many spaces. And so I was at a funeral service a good few years ago for an extended family member. And I remember the person who was doing the funeral service did a beautiful service. And then at the end said, and Jesus himself said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And then they paused and said, hey, but I'm a Christian and that's my particular soapbox, but it doesn't matter whatever religion you follow, all of them are true. And I thought, man, that's number one, that's you've taken Jesus' own words and cut off half what he said and radically changed it to be the absolute opposite of what he said. He said, no one comes to the Father but through me. But here, this person was saying, and all religions are true. So number one, it's changing his words. If you want to disagree with Jesus and say, no, you think he was wrong, then by all means, just do that. But let's not try and twist his words and say that, no, he actually meant something very different. Um, and so the question really is, I think people would say, and the way that I've heard this question is that all religions actually have the same goal. The idea that all religions are maybe superficially different, like maybe in the way they express things or have certain different rituals, so superficially different, but at the core, they're actually all the same. They all lead to God, right? Whatever that means. Now, I had this a couple of months ago. I was in Aberdeen doing some speaking engagements on the university campus, and I met a few Hindu guys who've come over from India to Scotland and studying there. And they were really fascinated by Jesus. And they come from a Hindu background, obviously, which means very polytheistic, pluralistic. And so to them, they thought, oh, this Jesus sounds really, really fascinating. They loved his parables and his the Sermon on the Mount. And they wanted to, hey, can we also worship Jesus along with all the other gods that they worship? And I said, well, according to Jesus, the answer to that question is no, because he is the way, the truth, the life, and no one comes to the Father but through him, not any of these other gods or other spiritual routes, or follow this course of action and you'll work your way up to God, find enlightenment, whatever it is. But many people will still say, hey, all religions do actually lead to God, or they're all the same. They're just, and maybe the illustration that people may have heard is the idea of the elephant. So if you imagine an elephant in front of you, and um, there are a couple of guys stumbling around it, but they're blindfolded. And someone says to them, what is it that's in front of you? And one guy's touching the leg of the elephant, and he says, okay, it's a tree stump. Another guy's holding on to the tail, and he says it's a rope. Another guy touching the ear, and he says, oh, it's a big like a big leaf or a fan. Another guy holding the trunk, and he says it's a snake. This idea that, hey, all of them are actually right because they're just touching different parts of ultimate reality, which is what the elephant is apparently representing. Um, Interesting claim. It's similar to another claim or illustration where, hey, there's the mountain, and all the religions are just following a different path up the mountain. But ultimately, if you follow any of them, you'll get to the top, and you'll meet God, whatever that looks like. Um, think to me, it's a very, very bold claim to say that, to be the one making that kind of claim, because at first it sounds quite humble. You're saying like, oh, they're all actually the same. But what you're doing when you say that, when you make either the claim of the elephant or the mountain, you are taking yourself outside of it. And you're saying you are somehow omniscient. You have this great, great knowledge, almost you're not even on the top of the mountain, you're above the mountain looking down on all these people sort of stumbling their way around, and somehow you're saying you are so enlightened that you are the one who knows that they all make that they're all leading to the same goal. Problem is though, for if you are someone who makes that claim, when you speak to people who actually adhere to these different religions, we will tell you, oh no, we we were not saying the same thing, we're saying quite different things. And so the core claims, I mentioned people say that religions are superficially similar, superficially different, sorry, but similar at the core. It's actually the other way around. Uh, we are radically different at the core, but religious sort of practice is maybe the sort of superficial similarities. We're radically different at the core. Now you might say, okay, well, what do you mean? Um, think of Hinduism, for example, as I mentioned. The goal of Hinduism is not to get to God, not at all. That the goal of Hinduism is to escape the cycle of reincarnation through something that is called moksha, or release, right? So in the West, we have a very sort of soft, sort of happy version of karma, like, hey, karma is going to get you. But that's not at all what karma is, according to Hinduism or even Buddhism. It's a cycle you're trapped in. And if you don't live a good enough life, you come back as a lesser incarnation of yourself. So you might be a human in this life. If you do really badly, you might come back as, I don't know, a ferret or something. And so it's all about you working your way up. But the goal isn't God. The goal is release from the cycle. Okay, so God's different, and you have all the different gods, that whole pantheon of gods there to help you along the way, and you appeal to them in different ways. Or think of Buddhism. It's not about getting to God. It's far more about you almost becoming God in a way, in terms of finding enlightenment, whatever that looks like, because lots of different versions of Buddhism. But it's, again, follow the set of rules, follow the Eightfold Path, and you will then transcend. It's all about you. But if you don't do it, you'll never reach the goal. But the goal is not God again. So again, we're radically different at the core. Then think of something like Islam, right? Is the goal of Islam to get to God? No, it's not. The goal of Islam is to be obedient enough so that you would get to paradise. But God is very much, or Allah in Islam, is very much absent from the picture. But again, it's all about you doing enough good deeds to outweigh your bad deeds. But you have no assurance that you would have done enough. I was chatting to an imam recently in in Dundee, who pretty much said as much. He said, if you have become a Muslim later in life, and have lived a life that was not dedicated to worshiping Allah, then yeah, you gonna have to live a really, really good life. And then when you die, you better hope and ask family members and friends to keep praying for you to almost intercede to hopefully sort of make up for all your past misdeeds. And so there's no assurance of salvation, no assurance that you'll meet the goal, whatever the goal is. And so already there we can see just among those three, they're radically different, and they cannot be true at the same time in the same sense. If you go and look at the previous video, you can dig into why we say that. So here's the thing, Christianity is, again, radically different. The goal of Christianity is actually to come to have a relationship with God, unencumbered by our brokenness and our sinfulness, right? And so Christianity is radically different, but radically unique, because a lot of people think, hey, it's about you keeping a bunch of rules. You got the 10 Commandments, you got all Jesus teaching, and it's all about you keeping those so that God would love you. Many people think that. Again, that's not at all what Christianity is about. It's about God's grace. And so it's complete opposite of that. It's saying God says because he loves us and because it is his desire and his will to come find us and have restored relationship, that is what he does. And then once we have met him, once we've experienced his love and his grace, and we've seen who he really is, this amazingly loving God who actually steps into our world of brokenness and suffering in the person of Jesus. And once we come to meet him and see his love and experience his love, then because of that, we want to serve him and love him and know him. And one day, when we die, we are then to be reunited with him in right relationship. And that again, radically different to any other worldview. And I think rooted in the truth of Scripture. So it's all about grace. It's not about working your way up. So way more hopeful than anything I've ever seen or read about or experienced. And that is the difference. These aren't just words on a page. It's an experience you can have when you come to Jesus and get to know him and cast yourself at his mercy.
And there you have it, folks. What about other religions? And the key text there, as Steve shared, is John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So I hope you enjoyed that, folks. And we'll leave a couple of links in the comments section to the video that Steve mentioned at the beginning and also for the Solos website. So thank you, and I hope to see you all again soon. God bless. Bye bye.